Hello, and welcome to I Am Dad Podcast with your fatherhood authority, Kenneth Braswell. 30 minutes of wisdom, information, resources, and nuggets to help you on your fatherhood journey. Or maybe you're just curious and want to hear some real talk about fatherhood, family, and the minds of men. Well, guess what? We got you too. Sit back, grab your pad and pen, and maybe even bring a little something to sip on. Enjoy 30 straight minutes of fatherhood, family, and fun with the Fatherhood Authority, Kenneth Braswell.
Welcome to I Am Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Kenneth Braswell. Thank you for joining us on another insightful and provocative episode. We are still moving along in season 4. So happy to be with you. So happy that you guys are actually listening to me too, right? Because I asked you in the beginning of the year to make sure that you subscribe, because we got thousands of people who listen every week and nobody subscribes. That makes absolutely no sense to me. And so if you're going to listen to us for like 45 minutes, take some time, see that little red button that says subscribe, hit subscribe, because subscribe impacts the algorithms, y'all, which allows us to be seen by more people. And so I keep telling you, and I just discovered something last night that really made me happy. And so we are number 5 on podcast evaluation of podcasts around the country, around the world. And so they do have a category for dad podcasts, or podcasts that are specifically talking about fatherhood issues. And of the 635, we were ranked at number 5. And then we went down to 7. And then when I looked at it the other day, we're back up to 6. But we're still not where I want to be. I keep telling you, I need to be number 1. And so I have a problem with not being number 1. And so I need you guys to subscribe. I need you guys to share. I need you guys to get this information out there. And so, and it doesn't matter. This is, although our content is focused on and focused around responsible fatherhood, we are a family-oriented organization, and it is our desire and need to ensure that we do anything and everything possible to increase the health of our children. And for us, it's through strengthening fathers, one father at a time. And because we believe that if we strengthen fathers, we strengthen families. If we strengthen families, we strengthen communities. Let's get to today's guest. Today on the I Am Dad Podcast, we are honored to welcome the extraordinary Janice Robinson-Celeste, a powerhouse in early childhood education, media, and parenting advocacy. As the founder and publisher of successful Black Parenting magazine, the executive producer of Ethnic Animations, and the host of the syndicated podcast BACKTALK, Janice has dedicated her career to uplifting Black families and empowering parents with resources and support to help their children strive. With an impressive background as an educator, entrepreneur, and not-for-profit leader, Janice brings a wealth of experience and insight to every conversation. Her work, from award-winning children's books to groundbreaking initiatives like the National Black Parenting Conference, continues to leave a lasting impact on families and communities. So let's dive into an inspiring discussion about her journey, her mission, and her vision, and the future of Black parenting. Let's bring her to the stage. How you doing, Miss Janice?
I am doing fantastic. How are you, Kenneth?
I'm good. I can't complain. You know, like the spade players play. I can't call my hand. I might have a 9. I might have, depending on my partner, we might only get 5. That's if you play spades. I might be right over your head unless you play spades. Play spades.
We're not talking about that. We're not going to discuss it. I'm not getting my black card taken. No, we're not talking about it.
We're not going to go there. Okay, we'll leave that alone. But yeah, it's such a pleasure to have you on. I admire your work. I admire what you're doing. And when I saw it, I was like, somehow I gotta get connected with her work, and so that we can bring this conversation of fatherhood into the space of parenting and bring it into the center of the conversation. Not that it's not there, but my task and calling is to bring this issue to the center of the conversation around parenting. Because around the country, when I go and speak to practitioners across the country and people who are doing family-oriented work, I often never leave without saying that if you're working with families and you're not working with fathers, you're not working with families. But be honest with who you're working with. And so if you're not working with fathers, just say it. You know, don't say family when you know you're cutting off an element of what's beneficial to our children. Janice, we start our podcast off with a very interesting ask, And so, but it gives our audience a backdrop. You can answer this however you want to answer this. Don't ask me, should I talk about this or should I talk about that? All we need you to do is tell us your daddy story.
My daddy's story? Well, I was a
Mhm.
daddy's girl, so that's an easy story. When I was little, you never saw him without me on his shoulders. And my dad was with me till I was in my early 20s. And unfortunately, he passed from a brain aneurysm unexpectedly. But, my dad was everything. Totally daddy's girl. So,
Mm. Thank you for that. We asked the question because the answer tells us something about you. It tells me something about you, right? It tells me something about your makeup. It tells me something about how you view parenting and your lens through which you see parenting. Because we know and we're very clear that none of our parents came to this earth with a manual. None of our children came to this earth with a manual. And so we tend to parent in the way that we were parented. That's our manual, right? Whether healthy or dysfunctional, that's the manual that we pull from. And so I often ask that question because we often have a general sense of what the mommy story is, but we never really know what that daddy story is. And when I fill in that blank, then I can think and like, all right, I know where we're going with this. But tell me a little bit about, you are now running Successful Black Parenting Magazine. I'm often curious about the journey to which you got to that point when you said to yourself, this is something I want to do. Talk to me a little bit about that journey.
well, it's a lifelong mission almost at this point. I literally started this magazine in print in my 20s. And my children were very little when I started. It was because we didn't see any images of Black children on the covers of parenting magazine, then especially on the inside. Then we realized that they weren't even addressing our issues like hair care, the health care. Nothing was being addressed. Okay, so we put out a full-fledged, full-color, high-quality magazine. It was even on newsstands in select places. But the advertisers did take a little long to respond because we weren't like Oprah putting out a magazine. They didn't know who we
Mhm.
were. So even though we had some Fortune 500 advertisers, and I sold that advertising, we had to close it because it was just not soon enough, and we had just enough money to fail. Then Black Lives Matter came out, and I was like, hey, you know what? This is remarkable. And we should have something, a presence on the internet, because we were the first Black parenting magazine nationally in print. And no one's going to know we even existed. And it was a great publication, and it still is. And so
Mhm.
I said, all right, let me just start and put some social media pages together for us. And I can throw together a website. I got all this different talent that you know, just learned over the past 20 something years that after we closed the magazine. So let me put this together. And so I did. And then again, once again, just like the first time, the community always supported us. They were always right there subscribing. Matter of fact, when we first came out in print, we were on CNN and in USA Today, and we just said how much a subscription would cost. They found our address and just started sending us checks. Like we started getting checks in the mail for our subscriptions right away before we even had a magazine in print, like a pre-order type situation. And so we did. We did really. I mean, I learned a lot in the beginning about circulation, everything, the advertising sales. And had we had the money that we needed, we would have totally been off and running, and we'd have never stopped. And that's the issue, by the way, with any kind of Black business, is that we get less than 1% of the venture capital funding out there, and they really don't want to invest in print now at all. But we also don't get fully funded at banks, so we are set up to fail as a Black business. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you about today as we get into the economy questions, is supporting Black businesses, not only ours, but there's so many. But that's how we got started, is because we didn't see anything about us. I was teaching parents, and I was a parent educator, and they said, hey, we don't parent like in these parenting magazines you have here. I said, yeah, I know. And I started writing my own stuff. And my friend, who was a social worker, worked with me. She said, you need to do your own magazine. And I had told her, I said, well, if you do it with me, I'll do it. Then she kept asking and bugging me. She kept poking me. Do this. And I was like, okay, do it with me. And that's how we originally got started.
So a little background on myself, I was also a publisher of a newspaper. And so I was actually a publisher for two newspapers, one for about 4 years, and the second one, Urban Voices, for about 7 years in the state of New York. And so what you're describing, you're talking to your kinship right now. I'm feeling everything that you're saying about the difficulty, particularly in publications that focus on particularly Black issues, right? And so why is it important though? Because often people don't really make a connect to the importance of magazines, right? And writing about our issues and putting them on paper. Why is it so important to you? Because you span across several different platforms, not just magazines, but you also have written books. Why is it important for us to publish?
Well, for me, my lifelong goal has been to see the Black family thrive, go from surviving to thriving. And that's my mission in life. So everything that I do is kind of connected to that. Not that I don't want to see anybody else thriving, but I'm Black. I want to see my people surviving and, going further and thriving, not just like trying to make it out here, because we have so many things like against us. And I'm hearing people say, if you're not in it, you don't know. Like I do, I see the research every day. All you gotta do is do a Google alert about Black community, and you'll see everything from environmental things that are happening to us to medical things we just can't even survive. It's just like a lot of things are stacked against us. Not saying we can't get out of it, because some of us do, but so many of us don't. And then people like to point to the ones that make it and be like, see, they did it, compared to how many who did not. So yeah, it's important to me to see our community thrive. We need to thrive. And it really came to me one day. I happened to had the opportunity to live in a very wealthy neighborhood for about a year. Very wealthy, right on the water, access to the bay, multi-million dollar homes. And I'm riding my bike around and I'm wondering, why am I the only Black person here? I know these people aren't smarter than me, right? I know they're not. So what is the deal here? Because there should be Black people with more beachfront property. And I love the beach, so you're gonna find me there. But I might, but there's not enough of us owning beachfront property. So what is it? If these people, I know they're not working harder than me, that's for sure.
Right.
No, they're not smarter than me, that's for sure. So what is it that they have that I don't have? And that's easy to make a connection to.
Yeah, opportunities, right?
Opportunities. They stick together too. They really do stick together. Saying we don't, because we've been sticking together more so now than like since the civil rights movement. We're coming together. There's still some of us that don't have it together, because they're always going to be those outliers. But I've seen us come together more since like even Black Lives Matter showed up on the scene. Even though some of that stuff went south, we still are seeing more of a community now than I've seen in my lifetime anyway.
But it's so important. The communication piece of our culture has always been important, right? When we saw the dismantling, of our major media outlets, particularly around radio and television stations that begin to get gobbled up by other mainstream platforms, it began to, in a sense, take our voice away. And if you go back historically, right, to particularly radio and Black newspapers in small communities that spoke to our people in a way that not only it informed them, but it served as a mechanism to galvanize and bring people together around one specific cause and one goal, regardless of how you felt you needed to get there. That was the beauty of our media, because we could turn the radio in the morning and listen to our local radio host and hear about everything that happened in our community the night before, but we would hear it from the lenses and the mouths of the person who actually was there to experience that. I think that's part of the element that we've also lost now, that we don't have the local ear. We don't have the local cultural ear that tells us and informs us, even on, and this is my soapbox now, even on national radio and communications, where hosts look like us, their conversation is still filtered through the entity that owns it, which is the biggest issue. What has been the most challenging piece for you as an owner of a magazine, trying to get your message through the fog of all of the other stuff that's going on out there, particularly on social media?
Yeah, there's a lot of noise on social media, but I just want to go back to what you said, because we've had a lot of offers to buy our publication, and I won't let it go because I don't know who it's going to. And the person that controls the media controls you, right? So they control our voice. We don't know what our voice is. And then on top of that, I'm just going to put this way. I'll be very careful how I say this, because a couple years ago, wrote to a major parenting publication, and I asked them to do a strategic alliance with our magazine. I was moved along to the vice president of this, vice president of that. Never heard a thing after that. Next thing I knew, I had to fight for my trademark because they were doing a whole new brand with my called Black Parenting, which is too close to my trademark. And they were major, but they weren't Black owned. And so eventually they changed the name, and they still have the brand. They're not pushing it out there really hard right now, but it's there. And I'm keeping an eye on it because they are very good at taking what they think we're doing instead of working with us and trying to do it themselves. So be very cautious and make sure that the voices you are listening to are voices that look like you and owned by people who look like you. So that said, it's difficult to compete with these megaliths that have been around forever, that are conglomerates, right? They have several magazines or publications. There was one time I literally had to fight with Madison Square Garden over a TV show idea that I had been shopping around. Like not Madison Square Garden, but people who own Madison Square Garden. I won't say what television station it was, but because I was able to connect who I sent my treatment to, because I didn't at the time have an entertainment attorney, and how they got it. And then the show exactly the same as I had the treatment written, but I was not included. And I knew the host that they did include instead of me. I would have been happy just being behind the scenes and telling them what to do. Luckily, the show failed eventually because I wasn't there. So I don't mean to laugh, but I got to tell you.
That's what happens anyway, right? Yeah.
So I literally went to litigation with them. So, and they told me what they told me. This is how they do it. So I want everybody to know this kind of stuff. It's what they told my attorney. They said, well, she can fight it if she wants to, but we will keep her in court so long and drag this out until she is homeless and bankrupt, or bankrupt and homeless, in that order, I should say. But and that's what they told him. My attorney, he started shivering in his boots, and so he backed out. But luckily, karma. So that's all I gotta say. It was karma. Yeah. So we need to listen to the voices who look like us, that are owned by us, and we need to own more. We need to do our own things.
Yeah. Now, your magazine is different in the sense that typically when you see particularly Black publications, they are either centering around entertainment or sports. Parenting is something different. Like, that's an empowering subject matter that more than just media are concerned about in terms of the public space. How difficult has it been, and what has been the nuance specifically as you're beginning to talk about parenting empowerment of Black families?
I think there's this misconception about parenting magazines for African Americans, especially, that we're trying to tell you what to do or trying to tell you how to raise your kid. And we actually are not like that at all. We give you the best practices, the research, the demographics, the statistics. We give you what's out there, and we add our culture into it. A lot of the demographics are already culturally based. And we let you pick what you want from that and parent how you want. We're not trying to tell you what to do, tell you how to raise your child. So it makes it difficult to get engaged followers, people who will, like you said earlier, subscribe, click on everything on our website. We have ads there. You don't have to buy anything. Just click on them. That helps us to thrive, so we can help you to thrive.
Right.
That's been really difficult because if I put something up about Snoop Dogg or, some entertainer, I get more clicks on that, even if I'm writing, something about parenting, of course, with them. But I'll get more clicks on that than I will get on, for instance, Black moms are dying in pregnancy right now in the labor room. Why they're dying in
Right.
the labor room? You should know this if you're at that age range where you're about to have a baby, that you're at risk. You are really at risk now for the next few years. You are
Right.
extremely at risk of them not saving you.
Mhm.
Those are things you would think that's life or death. Like, why would you care to click on this and find out? And we make it easy to read. I have bullet points, header, everything to make it easy to read. We even put out videos to help, so you don't even have to read it. But what helps us is to just click everything. Just click everything.
Mhm.
Anything, like it, share it. That helps us to thrive. It helps all businesses to thrive. That especially you should be helping, Black businesses that you like.
Yeah. The other thing that is shifting is our generations in terms of how they receive information. Like when you're talking about, like, just click, or I have to write things simplistically just so people can absorb something in a matter of 30 seconds as opposed to 30 minutes, right? Or 3 minutes, right? And
Right.
so, and it dilutes sometimes the importance of what it is you're trying to say and the urgency in what it is you're trying to say. When it comes to that communication and you're looking at your audience, how are you seeing the audience in and of itself changing with respect to people who are interested in hearing about Black parenting?
Oh, absolutely. The attention spans are shorter than ever, than ever. But video is king. So if you can do anything with video and get their attention, especially on social media, the shorter the better. It does dilute the message, but we always say if you want to know more, go here. Um, but that's what we're noticing, and you have to constantly evolve. If you're going to stay in business, in any business, you have to be ready to evolve to make it out here. And that's what we've been doing. It's been kind of difficult sometimes because digital for us, like digital for me specifically, digital advertising is different from the traditional advertising that I learned over 20 years ago. I got that down
Mhm.
pat. But
Mhm.
digital, I need to hire somebody probably, because
Mhm.
I'm not got those clicks per thousand. I had to pass up some major advertisers because we weren't big enough to have the software that Google offers once you become a large website, right? With a lot of I think it was over 100,000 clicks a month. You get invited to have this software where you can track advertisers' websites through different integrations of software.
Mhm.
And one of these big advertisers wanted us to be connected to that, and I couldn't do that. So we lose money when you guys don't follow us. And we lose money when you don't like and share.
Yeah, I'm struggling a little bit in our conversation because there's a piece of me that wants to stay in the business side of our conversation because there's so much there. But there's other piece of me that want to get into the parenting piece of it, which is I'll figure out how to juggle it. But I may
Right.
have to bring you back on so we can stay focused. This business conversation that we're having right now, is so critical for so many different reasons. And I don't think that business conversation is carrying through enough because I think we're talking too much when it comes to entrepreneurship and business about making a profit and moving forward than the infrastructure of business in and of itself for Black people and what that looks like and why we struggle with that. And there's some people that I want to introduce you to as well offline. But you started in the space, in the early childhood development space. Like,
Absolutely.
what are you seeing and why was that a motivator for you to really begin to start thinking about talking specifically about parenting?
Well, for me, I have a degree in early child education, and I always was interested in children, even in high school. I took child development, but when I started having my own kids, I wanted to stay home with them, and I opened my own daycare center. Right, so once I started opening my own daycare center, I said, "Oh, I need to go to school because I need to know more." So I went to school, I learned more, and then I thought, "Wow, you know what? We can really make add our culture to this and make it something special." My early childhood side always shows through. Matter of fact, even though we discuss teens a lot, most of the material and content is geared to kids under 6. We have some things in there for school age kids too, but my early childhood definitely shows through. It's kind of my favorite part.
When it comes to parenting now, because I'm sure the issues have transitioned over the years, but what has been the biggest difference you've seen in, and you know, I refrain from using this term only because I got teenage boys in my house back in the day, right? Every time you say that to them, it shuts them right off. It's like I got to find other words to get them to stay connected to what I'm saying. But what have you seen in terms of the biggest challenges for parenting from when you started doing this work to now?
Well, not to scare people, but safety all around.
Mm,
Safety, the internet, because the internet did not exist like it does today. Um, and safety in person. We have kids missing all over the country. Nobody looks for. You know, we
mm,
have child trafficking. We have online, the internet with bullying. Bullying back in the day used to
mhm.
be only when you were at school usually, or maybe a neighbor, and you can get away from it. But now it's like can be 24/7, and the kids are afraid to block the bully because then they got to deal with that the next day.
Mhm.
So these kind of things you can't say like when I was growing up because it's not like when you were growing up. It's a totally different world now, and so the evolution of the internet has changed parenting 100%. Kids can get, they were able to get, and they're putting in more restrictions, but they could get drugs from social media. I won't say which ones, and a lot of times those transactions would disappear, and we had a lot of tragedies because parents didn't know that their kids were able to do this, and there's so many like emoji codes to order drugs that parents don't even know about.
Right. Yeah. And that's an education piece. So that really kind of splits your audience, right? Because you're trying to teach your old audience on what's happening with their new children,
Hmm.
and new parents, and new parents on what's happening with their kids, which is, you can feel, I guess, sometimes like you're all over the place, but it's necessary to be all over the place because that's where our issues are, all over the place.
Right.
Um, when it comes to the conversation around fatherhood, because that's the space that, you know, we are immersed in. Have you seen a uptick in the way that people are talking about fathers today than they did back in the day?
Oh yeah, for sure. There was a stereotype of the absentee dad, and the CDC came out with a whole report saying that Black fathers were the most involved
Hmm.
fathers of all races. And
Hmm.
that kind of shut a lot of people up because even if the white fathers, for instance, were in the home, they weren't involved. They were so busy working or playing golf, whatever heck they're doing. They weren't involved parents. They left it on the mom.
Hmm.
So black parents, black fathers specifically, even if they were not in the home, they were still very involved with their children. And that has changed kind of the perspective of a lot of people. So when you get these racists come in and say, black dads aren't there or try to say something about our fathers, we can point back and say, well, where was your dad when you were growing up? Was he out playing golf? Was he working? So
Hmm.
something else. But black dads aren't involved. And I love that the CDC signed off on that.
Hmm. It's one of the things that we see in our work, like research is telling a very um, unique story, revealing story. But there's a piece of me that has always been, what they are now describing isn't something that's new, right? We've always been there.
50s. Oh yeah, think of the 50s. I mean, they've been trying to tear the black family apart, after like the Jim Crow, but and they that's definitely documented how after the civil rights movement that they start putting our men in prison for minor offenses and all kinds of issues that white families don't have to experience. But our dads have been there. My dad was there. I understand. I've seen dads there. I don't know what they were seeing, but my dad was there, and that was through. I won't tell how old I was. But.
The challenge for me has always been, challenge and frustration for me has always been that we buy into those narratives,
Mhm.
right? And it's kind of like, whoa, hold on, like we can't do that. Like,
Yeah.
we can't buy into narratives that's not representative of who we are. And then you have to ask your question, what's the forces that are cultivating an environment to which we do buy into negative narratives about us as a people?
Well, that's true. Because you know what? Today we don't do our research. We listen to
Mhm.
memes before we will listen to facts. Someone put out a meme with no research, we're sharing it, right? And I saw
Mhm.
that starting to happen about a decade or so ago with the internet. Is that especially even with some news sites that are called news sites,
Mhm.
they would run with the story without even interviewing or asking the people they're talking about if this really happened. I know because my daughter and I were subject to a story that ran in a UK publication as well as the United States, and we're looking like it happened several times. My daughter happens to be a supermodel, Cecily Lopez. She's kind of stepped back out of the scene now, but she was a Victoria's Secrets model as an adult. She's been on the cover of Vogue Italia, in Vogue America. She was the number 13 top working model in the world. And
Mhm.
she got so we got a couple of stories, and we were looking at each other like that never even happened. That never even happened. Right now, you can Google her name. It's spelled differently, but it's Cecily Lopez, right? And it'll say that she was one of Kanye West's old girlfriend. And she never even had his phone number. She didn't know she was never his girlfriend. She never
Wow.
even knew. She's like, Mom, I don't have his phone number. But it still repeats. I got a Google alert last week with her name on it saying a list of Kanye West's old girlfriends. She was in his video. He did do a song about her, but they were friends. She said, I
Wow.
can't even call him if I wanted to. But yeah, she's listening. So these are kind of things they never even talk to you about, and they just propagate everywhere and continue because the internet is forever, you know?
And
So
you
fact
can't
check,
you can't win. You can't
no,
win against the internet.
no, fact checking is important, you know,
Yeah.
and if that doesn't happen, a meme will go, way further.
So we are now entering into a new era. Some will say a not so much new. We've been here before, but I think that this is new. This ain't like the last one. This is new. And so the question for us is, where are Black families going to fall in this space? And how are we going to um, continue to persevere, to continue to elevate, to continue to empower ourselves, regardless of what is happening? Because what we do know is, for Black people, been there, done that. This ain't the worst that you've ever tried to do to us in the church. This is light stuff with respect to us. We're going to be all right. We're going to be good. But the question is, for the younger folks who may not be connected with the era of our resilience, our really, really strong resilience, where are they going to get their resilience from if they begin to buy into the narrative, right? And so there is now a full-on attack on DEI, which I have my issues with DEI anyway, but to completely eliminate it is also not the answer, right? And to say that we are now going to look at everybody based on merit, we know what that means, right?
Yeah,
And
they're not going
so
to do that.
and
We know
so
they're not going to do that.
yeah. And so, as someone who has a magazine that's really focused on talking about Black parenting, have you begin to start thinking about how that's going to change your narrative?
Oh, absolutely. We just put an article out about that, what's to come in this new era. And uh, the thing is that, like you said, we survived the worst of the worst. We're going to survive this. I see all the memes about Black women and Black people minding their own business through this whole next administration. I mean, I get it. I get it. But eventually you're going to have to fight. I'm telling you, because freedom's not free.
Mm,
And, you know, it's they're going to make you uncomfortable. You know, Black people, Black community has found comfort in a lot of these things that we have now, since especially civil rights, right? We are comfortable and we should be comfortable. And I'm repeating this after someone else who I had a conversation about this with on my podcast, and it just resonated with me that we are comfortable and that they're going to do everything they can to make us uncomfortable.
mm,
you have to, as a Black person, parent, child, whoever you are, look within your community. This is when our community has to just be as strong as possible and be there for each other. We're going to have to go look at our Black doctors and see if they will do sliding scale fees for us when our healthcare is cut, right? We're going to have to support our Black businesses because we know they're going to be looking out for us. You know, we have a sponsor now who does, I didn't even know they existed, laundry detergent, and they're Black owned, right? They're Black owned. They're now on our website, everything, but I'm going to promote them forever because who knew we had a Black laundry detergent? It's even halal. When I talked to them, they said that there were pork enzymes in other laundry detergent that they use for whatever purpose. And I'm like, what? I'm not, I don't even, I eat pork. I'm not Islamic, but I still was surprised about that. And, but they have my business from now on. So I started this movement as part of a New Year's resolution. I was kind of doing it anyway, but I'm really going all out. And I hope everybody joins me. It's called Buy Black Everything, hashtag Buy Black Everything.
Okay.
And what I'm asking people to do, parents, to do is before you get on Amazon and order a product, or before you just run out to the store to get a product, look and see. I don't care if you have to use Chat GPT because it's better than Google. Sorry, Google. Come on up. But Chat GPT or whatever to say, hey, is there a Black product that I can buy soap from? Is there a Black product for diapers? Yes, there are. There are plenty. Wipes, detergent, deodorant. There is almost a Black product for anything that you want. You might have to wait a little longer for it, so plan ahead, but please do it because it's worth it and you are keeping our community alive. So buy Black everything. Hashtag buy Black everything. Think before you buy, look before you buy, and see if there's a Black alternative.
But that's a change in behavior for a lot of people because to your point about being comfortable, not only are we comfortable, but we also are addicted to convenience, right? And so I ain't got time to go through what you just said to find that because I need my soap right now, right? It's so part of the narrative for us is in building up that resiliency, right? Is to say, no, you may have to be a little inconvenient for empowerment. And I don't know where we are right now in those conversations, but that conversation needs to be elevated, which leads me to the conference. And so you're also a convener, which is extremely important in bringing like minds, and not only like minds, but minds, period, right? Because we get into that, right? That everybody in the room has to have a like mind. They really don't, and they should. And they should have kind of various minds that allow you to explore whatever subject matter you are engaged in. But talk to me a little bit about the conference, why you chose to do that, and what are you attempting to accomplish as a result of it?
Well, February 7th and 8th, we have the National Black Parenting Conference. And this has been a baby that I've been thinking about in my head to birth like years ago. And I decided to do it to bring our community together, to also make us stronger, so that we can talk about these things and we can have some of our leaders in the fields. I've talked to some wonderful people, as I'm sure you have on your podcast, that I thought I'd bring in person for you guys to meet. But we decided to start with online as we build up our sponsors. And what we're going to do is hopefully if everyone supports us, like I'm hoping they will, we want to bring this into an in-person event this time next year. And we're going to start in Atlanta, Georgia, right in our home state, town, the home city. And we're going to be talking about it and building it up into something even greater than it is right now. But we've gotten so much support for the National Black Parenting Conference. You can register online today. You can go on our website at successfulblackparenting.com. Remember to put the successful first. Everybody says Black parenting, but in order to trademark it, we had to be successfulblackparenting.com. So look for us there. And, and I think it says a lot because we want our kids to be successful. We want to be successful. And to do that, I think is raising a well-rounded kid that, you're proud of, that they're proud of themselves. So successfulblackparenting.com.
And, I'm definitely want to be engaged and involved in helping you with that promoting that and move that through our platforms, particularly through our regular platforms, which is our Fathers Incorporated platform. What we can do with the other platform, we're not exactly sure right now. That's still up for debate, but we still have national reach. We still have local reach, very deep national and local. So I want to make sure that we move that far and wide. And if you're looking for any level of expertise in any of those spaces, I'm sure you, like I know, a lot of people out there and can get to a lot of people who would be more than happy to be engaged in this conversation. I think, to a certain extent, there are thought leaders out there that are looking for a safe haven space to be able to be around like-minded people to think about like how we advance our culture. How do we begin to move our culture? When you think about the work that you're doing, do you ever think about it in that sense that what you're doing is bigger than what you are?
All the time from day one. From day one. But I just want to go back and say, because you said that there are other people. We're also launching at the conference the Black Parenting Academy. So we're going to have speaker proposals open throughout the year. So if you have something that you want to say, you have expertise behind it, please.
Don't ask me that, because I always got something to say. Yeah,
come through. But yeah, as far as it being bigger than me, this is a lifelong mission. I always said, as long as I have money to keep the website going, I don't care if I have to work on this once a week. If whatever happens, I have to work 10 jobs to keep it going, it's going to go. I will never, ever end it again. That was my biggest and only regret in life, is that I let it go 20 years ago out of print. We could have been a media mogul by now. And it's not about the money for me, because God knows I put more money into this than I've ever received out of it. It is a mission for me. And I thought about at one point making a nonprofit, but now I said, no, then I can't compete with the bigger parenting companies out there. Not that I can really as a little business, but I don't want to be looked at as, nothing's wrong with nonprofit, but I don't want to be looked at as a charity. I want to be looked at as some business that can compete with some other publishers. So, it was a struggle to figure out, I'm giving up more money than I'm getting in, but I can't give it up. This is a lifelong mission for me.
Yeah, one of the things, and we'll talk about this more offline as well, I had the same thought about the not-for-profit journey, because we're a not-for-profit.
Mm-hmm.
But if I tell you what we've accomplished over the last 15 years as a not-for-profit, from a business mindset, when you begin to start thinking about the entity very differently than the public perception of the entity, it changes how you think about it. It also opens up avenues to be able to utilize those things in spaces. And then we'll talk more about that, because I think it'll work for you or help for you in terms of one of the things that I've learned, Janice, that we also had to diversify businesses, right? And so even though we started at the ground with a not-for-profit, we also have 2 for-profits associated with the not-for-profit. And so expanding your base, so whatever entity you need to do whatever, you have an entity that can absorb what it is you're trying to do, whether or not you want someone to be charitable or you want somebody to invest, doesn't really matter. I got the entity for you to do it with. And you begin to think that way, particularly if you understand that the NFL is a 501c3, right? It functions and administrates as a not-for-profit, but it is the entities of the owners around the country that brings in the money. That's the model for, not-for-profits. And I'm only saying that because Black people need to understand that. Like, we need to understand that business is just a model. It's just a means to absorb as much money as you possibly can. And nothing says that you only have to have one model. You have to have multiple models depending on where you're going to be able to get people to support you in a way that you need them to support. And then 501c3 back in the day ain't the same as 501c3 today. All of those things that were benefits of a 501c3, charitable giving, has been morphed into workarounds where corporations can still do that and still get the tax breaks that they got from giving you charitable money back then. They can still get it. They just do it another way. And so in this parenting space, what we've done as an agency is really, for me particularly, there was a time, now it's been 10 years ago, that I decided to stop calling myself an executive director. that this is a business. I am a CEO. I function with CEO mentality. People don't know I'm a not-for-profit until they actually have to know that for a particular reason. But the only difference between my not-for-profit and my for-profit is the way I pay taxes. That is, or the way I file taxes. It is the only difference that I've realized now between the two of them, that it is just the way I file my taxes. But every other business decision that I make, I might as well be running Apple, because it's the same difference. I'm paying the same taxes. Ain't nobody giving me no break like it used to. Remember, you used to go into a store like, oh, I'm not for profit, I shouldn't be paying taxes. And then you had to bring in a form and they give it to you. Now they look at you like, you better get out of here with that form and pay these taxes and get out my face. The podcast, which is another element of the conversation that I'm interested in hearing from you. Talk to me a little bit about the podcast.
Well,
BACKTALK. I love the name.
BACKTALK about successful Black parenting. Yeah. I figured that was a way to get us our foot in the door to interview some celebrities, or to get even, just some experts in the field, and to network even. People like to be on podcasts. It's just a thing, right? So we were able to get a few people from Tommy Davidson. We have some different. I mean, there are a lot of different people in there. I think of Tommy because he's just so funny, and it was a really hilarious podcast. But we had different people from correspondents from ABC News who have books out, celebrities that have books out, to Olympic athletes. So, and I'll announce it here. And we're even working with people wonder what happened to Bobby Brown. Well, apparently he's a great dad, and he's putting into his kids right now. So we have a story coming up with Bobby Brown and his family. It might get delayed because of LA fires, because he was out in LA. But keep an eye out for that. This coming out this year, and let's find out what even Bobby Brown's been doing lately.
I literally was just talking about him yesterday to somebody about family, because I was talking about in my earlier days, I worked for the New York State Child Support Enforcement Agency, to which he had a case in there. And we were talking about how the courts view celebrities, right? But people will look at the laws and say that that's how they view celebrities, but it's not just celebrities, it's people of wealth. And so they look at them very differently. And I said a lot of that cultivated how he transitioned and moved into a different business model along the way so that he could survive that element of his life, which is to become a great dad, do great things, but not have this administrative stuff block what it is he was trying to accomplish. And so when I see him now on TV and I see him doing his thing, I'm like, I smile when I see him, because I know where he was and I know where he is now. And I'm sure your story is going to capture all of that. And then lastly, that documentary that he did, I think it was a documentary or a reality show or whatever it was. I just randomly ran across that one night and watched it. And I sat there, and I'm supposed to be watching Bobby Brown because he's my prerogative. I'm supposed to be dancing and doing that. And I cried through the whole thing, watching him interact with his children.
Yeah, but he's doing great as a father, and he has young children. People don't even know that. I think the youngest is 5, if I'm not mistaken. He's so you're going to be surprised.
Yeah. Now, you still writing children's books, or that was a past thing?
No, I still have a lot in my head that I want to get out. I have put it on hold for now because, burning the candle at 10 different ends. But I'm going to hold off for now. We have to sell all of the other ones. We have so many in that I made. I want to make sure that they all get sold first. We have Miles Stuffy Nose, which won an award from Mom's Choice Award, the Gold Seal, and it teaches toddlers how to blow their nose. And it's a little brown boy who goes through all kinds of images in his head of how he should blow his nose from advice for family until he actually gets it, which actually helps your child. I have a board book that's a board book too, but we have a board book called Big Kid, and it's very simplistic, but kids like it. They like it. And it teaches kids, basically, based on public speaking, how to feel bigger in this world and empowered. And adults don't get it as much because it's not geared to you. It's geared to the repetition of children and what they like. And so it talks about all the fun things that are big that children like, from dinosaurs to big buildings, to trains, to trucks. And it gets their attention. And if you show them on our YouTube channel and Ethnic Animations, there's a video that accompanies each book so that it has a song with it or the story with it. The kids really love the song for Big Kid, which happened to come from, I have a granddaughter, and when she was little, her mom, my daughter, the supermodel, was bouncing her on her hip, saying, "I'm a big kid, a big, like we said, girl, a big, big girl." And I was like, that's a catchy little song. Let me record that. And then from that, we made the song and the animation, and then we made the book.
Nice. I'm excited for you. I see the big picture. And I know you probably don't talk to a lot of people who see the big picture when they're just listening to you talk, but I see the big picture, and I would not. That 20 years, sometimes I always say that God answers 3 ways. Not now, wait, or I have something different for you. Those are the 3 ways that he answers. And so when I think about that last one, that's the one that intrigues me the most, which is, no, I have something different for you. That's basically saying that your idea is great, but it's not my idea. And I have something else in store. And I may have to take a little time to cultivate the environment and till the soil so that it is ready when I finally plant this seed in you. And so coming back after 20 years is just that. It is just, no, go do the other things. Go get some other stuff that you're going to need. Get some other skill sets. Meet some different people. Do some different things. Because when I finally say plant, you're going to be planted with all the things that's necessary to make you succeed. And so that's just how I see life. I see world. I see my own organization through those eyes. And that's why I'm excited for you. I really believe that God's going to do something extremely monumental and special in your work, in your life, through this magazine, because damn it, we need it. Goodness, Black people need something positive that we can lean in and lean on, so that we can get through this thing we call life. Right. And it's going to take people who have spirit like yourself, myself, and many others who are out there trying to do the right thing at the right time. And none of this stuff and this noise, as you described, that's happening out there is going to mean absolutely nothing to the forward projection of what it is we're trying to do and why we're doing it, because we know whose we are. Right. Yeah. And that will trump all of it.
You know what? You're like the 4th person that told me that recently. And I think I had some very talented people come on board to help me with so many things that found me by some means. And that is pushing this whole empire forward. So
here I am. Put me in, coach. Let me know how you'll talk. I'll let you know what my talents are, and how we can make those happen. But your work aligns with mine. And right. And so just know that anytime Kenny Braswell is in the conversation, I have one question, and that question has to be answered for me. And that is, what about dad? I don't care what we talking about. Absolutely. What about dad? Are we talking about dad here? If we ain't talking about dad, then this is the wrong room for me to be in. And so, but I don't think that's ever going to happen with you and I, but that's just how I function in life, because I know that that's my calling. Like, you could have a calling to do whatever you have a calling to do. But for me, it's about these daddies. It's about getting them right and getting them prepared and empowering them in a way that they become the best assets that their families need for them to continue to strive. Tell people how they can get in touch with you and give them a call for action.
Wait, say that again.
How they can get in touch with you and give folks a call to action. Tell them to do something. What is it that they need to do? What you need?
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to tell you, first of all, you can get in contact with us from our website, successfulblackparenting.com. What I need from people, honestly, the easiest thing you can do is follow us on social media, interact with our social media, go to our website, click on the advertisements, whether you buy something or not, just click on them. They're tracking how many clicks we get. So all of those kind of things help us to help you. So that's all I ask is help us help you. Click on everything, engage in our social media, comment. All those things add up. really quickly to keep a business in business. I ask that you do that so we can continue to help you.
Janice Robinson-Celeste, thank you so much for joining I Am Dad podcast. I appreciate you. And as my pastor, my bishop, board chair always says, I love you and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And so continue to be great. And I'm looking forward to what God has in store for you. I'm looking forward to what God has in store for us. And to all of my I Am Dad podcast listeners, you know how I like to leave you. Always be kind to others as you're kind to yourself, or you might find yourself by yourself. Always shoot high for your goals, because even if you miss, you'll be amongst the stars. And as my good friend and mentor, Art Mitchell, used to always say to me, Kenny, it's nice to be important, but you know what? It's much more important to be nice. Until next Sunday, have a blessed week. Peace out.
Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us. You've been listening to I Am Dad podcast. We hope that you have been informed, encouraged you to think, or even inspired your heart for the love of dads. The conversation does not end here. Come back and join us next week. Same time, same place. Or you can continue the dialogue on our I Am Dad Facebook page. We also invite you to listen to past episodes, learn more about us, and keep up with special activities by visiting IamDadPodcast.com. That's IamDadPodcast.com. Until next time, I leave you with this reminder of manhood from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Because of this reminder, I will always understand that I am Dad, period.